While they're making their way to their seats, I'd like to welcome and introduce our moderator for the evening, Jason Watts. Jason is the Director of Environmental Health and Safety at Mahipono, a Maui farming company focused on addressing Hawaii's food security issues and developing high-quality produce to enhance Hawaii's economy. With over 400 employees, the company is transforming 41,000 acres of vacant former sugar land into a thriving, diversified agriculture hub in Maui's Central Plain. Before joining Mahipono in 2019, Jason served as a special assistant to the director of the State Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, and also as a senior advisor to two of Hawaii lieutenant governors. As senior advisor in Lieutenant Governor's office, Jason spearheaded the Lieutenant Governor's policy agenda, including the creation of the state's first formalized farm-to-school pilot initiative, Aina Pono, within the State Department of Education. He also currently serves on the board for the Agricultural Development Corporation. Thank you, Jason, for joining us.
Thank you, Denise. I'm happy to be here tonight with this panel, and if you forgive me, I'm going to stand at the podium. It's safer back here. Let's start by introducing our distinguished industry leaders. Krista Collins, District Manager, Flick 808. Michael Robinson, Vice President, Government Relations and Community Affairs for the Hawaii Pacific Health. And Randy Moore, Deputy Superintendent with the Hawaii Department of Education. Panelists, let's take about 30 seconds and introduce yourselves and give a brief overview of what you folks do. And if Krista, you don't mind, let's start with you.
Hi, aloha everyone. So I'm Krista Collins. I'm the district manager for Flick Independent Schools in Hawaii. We feed about 6,000 students every day on 2 islands. Before I did this job, I was a chef in the San Francisco Bay Area and Northwest Portland, Oregon, the Pacific Northwest for 25 years before I moved to Hawaii in 2015. Thank you.
Thanks, Krista. Let's move on next to Randy. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you. Good evening to all. I'm Randy Moore. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Operations, which means everything that doesn't have anything to do with what happens in the classroom for the Department of Education. And one of the areas is our school food service. We serve breakfast and lunch, maybe 80,000 lunches a day. Food has really been interesting in addition to eating it because it's a lever for what Paula was talking about in getting us to a 30% food, local food consumption in Hawaii. So I am looking forward to working with our folks to get there. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. Next, we want to welcome Michael.
Good evening. I'm Mike Robinson. I've been with Hawaii Pacific Health for 25 years. And for those of you that don't know Hawaii Pacific Health, we're the nonprofit healthcare system comprised of Piolani Medical Center, Palimaumi Medical Center, Straub, and Wilcox on the island of Kauai. And in my role, I oversee both government relations and community engagement. Our mission is to create a healthier Hawaii, and the work that I'm engaged in is getting our healthcare system engaged in the good work that needs to build healthy communities in Hawaii. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Michael. So let's start with our first question. Krista, we'll start with you. Your work with Flick 808, in particular Kamehameha Schools food service branch, we hear that students at Kamehameha Schools love their school lunches. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you serve and a little bit about your food service operations that make Kamehameha Schools lunches so good?
Sure. Well, it's easy to answer a question when they like the food, right? So, at Kamehameha Schools, we're on 2 campuses, Ke'au and Kapalama, and we have the ability with Flick Independent Schools to really nourish the whole person because we have scratch kitchens. And so we have chefs that work on all of our teams over 4 schools on 2 islands. We make everything from scratch. We can control allergens and flavor profiles. And really build menus to order, and we're intentional with our purchasing at Kamehameha Schools. Last year, ending in June, we were able to meet the goal of 45% purchasing locally in protein and produce, which was pretty big. So we're happy to meet that. It's not without the partnerships though that have been built for us. That was really integral for us to be able to make that, make those connections and make those partnerships happen. We know the challenges of having to feed large amounts of people. Certainly, you do. And so, farm hubs, and all of the teams within KS, their systems were really pivotal for us. So we're so grateful to have been with KS this long. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Krista. All right. Next question is for Randy. And Randy, our public schools have different constraints and barriers, like the USDA requirements that maybe our private schools, like Kamehameha schools, don't have. And I understand that only about 50% of our students take school lunch. Can you tell me how the DOE is working to improve its food services so more students want to eat school lunches?
That's a great question. Our participation rate has gone from 50 to 52, which is a little. And the breakfast, which we also serve, has gone from 15 to 17%. So you can see that we have a lot of ways to go. Historically, we have been we're a 6-island school system, and everybody serves the same thing wherever. As Paula pointed out, we're not going to get different results if we don't do things differently. And we need to move away from everybody eats the same thing every day. That limits what we can serve, because you've got to have enough to serve 80,000 kids. So we're going to go to more regional menus, and even menus that are tailored to the demographics. For example, the military base school is not that interested in rice, but it's pretty essential if you're at Farrington. So we will need to vary our menus, change our practices in that way. There were two other things. One was, if you for breakfast, there was a school on Maui that said, instead of you drop off the kid and you can go wherever until the first bell rings, the only wherever you could go on campus was the cafeteria. The participation rate in breakfast went way up. Another trick for getting breakfast up was, so you get to school at 5 minutes of 8, you really don't have time to go eat breakfast if school starts at 8. How about if you have a little grab and go breakfast in the classroom? Another way to get things up. So it's changing practices, which of course is wonderful if you're the one that has to change and not me. But change we must.
Thanks, Randy. Thank you. Our next question is from Michael. Michael, tonight's theme is farm to institution. And in addition to schools, hospitals and prisons can also play, or do play, a huge role in institutionalized purchasing of local ag. Can you tell us a little bit more about how Hawaii Pacific Health initiatives in this area, and about how you see other hospitals playing in this area?
Yeah, sure. I'll just start. How we came to this. We were actually kind of late to the party, I'll admit. And I get asked a lot. Why is a healthcare delivery system? When you think about a hospital, you don't traditionally see them getting engaged in the type of work that we're doing in local food system development. How we came here really was to address the inequity that we were seeing in the healthcare marketplace. Right? We are fortunate to be in a privileged position of treating patients. And what we see on a day-to-day basis is that access to food, access to healthy food, it's such a tough thing to be able to isolate and prove the direct impact of it. But our clinicians understand it and see it in a way that a lot of folks don't get to see it. And I think over time we have really wanted to define ourselves as a healthcare delivery system that embraces the fact that wellness exists outside of the four walls of our hospital, right? It's where we live, where we work, and where we play. We're not just in the business of sick care and providing acute care services. And so it's that journey really to address equity, and then that journey to what we're seeing in our patient encounters. And if you look at HPH across our system, we have about 1 million patient encounters. Think about that, right? Through our inpatient, outpatient, telehealth consults, emergency room. And what led us to this is we said, well, we want to be working upstream, and we have the means and the mass. We have about 7,000 employees. Our food budget isn't that huge. It's probably $5 million in that neighborhood. But if we can do what we currently do in our business practices and be intentional in a few areas, we think we can move the needle on a lot of root causes. And the 3 areas that we are focusing on is affordable housing, economic empowerment, right, and our role as an employer. And then the third thing is food system development. And we solve food system development first through just access to food. We see a heck of a lot of food insecurity in the patients that we serve. And if we really want to work upstream, we really have to go beyond just providing a particular patient with access to food. And I would say that in terms of globally, the work that I think we're most proud of in terms of getting our hands dirty and rolling up, maybe in 2 areas. And they're correlated and linked to each other. Access to capital, right? We know, we've learned that the landscape of farming here, it's comprised of small family farms to a large extent, and how we can provide capital for those small farmers. We've created a fund that is basically doing micro lending through intermediaries. So we're in the banking business now of providing lending, okay? 10 years, 2% interest only, okay? That does not exist in the marketplace. But we have figured out a way to leverage our balance sheet to lend that capital, 1% of our investable assets, about $8.5 million, that we are working through intermediaries to get to small farmers. That's one. The second piece of that, and it has to do with the demand, is we have a 50% purchase local at each of our hospitals, okay, in produce and in protein. All of our food managers, and they're all here tonight, I'm really happy to see. They can witness this movement that's going on, is held to that standard that we need to be intentional about what we purchase. And so what we hope to do is be able to lend on the front end, and then we provide some kind of circularity in that economy by purchasing from the same produce farmers that are taking in financing. And I think if we've been doing that in partnership with Kamehameha Schools, other fine partners, and I think that's where we're starting, and we hope to make progress on.
Nice. All right, let's get back to Krista here. So Krista, about 181,000 acres of Kamehameha Schools land is based in conservation and ag. Are there any connections or collaborations being made between KS, farmers, and your food service operations for students? And if so, can you provide us with some examples?
Sure. Again, the relationships that have been built with Kamehameha Schools and the farm hubs have been huge for us, because it gave the smaller farmers, and it gives the smaller farmers a seat at our table, essentially, that they can come in where we couldn't reach them before, because scaling to our volume is difficult. I mean, certainly not as big as you guys. I thought we were big, but now I'm thinking, man, small fries up here. So these, the smaller farms and the farm hubs, they were so huge for us. Farm Links have been great, and Kahumana has been great for us. We're just so thankful to have access to the Ulu Co-op and Go Farm. We're so happy to have these relationships that we've been able to build and really bring food to the table, because you can't just be the yes sayer, to your point, right? You have to be the way maker. You have to be the solution finder. You can say yes, but you have to do it. And then you have to inspire everybody around you to do it too. So I think for us, having our ability to make things from scratch, having an educated workforce in food, people that love food, right? Chefs, we love food. We just love it. So when you love it, really, we're just farmers that like more heat. So it's, it's for us, it's, is that my time? Sorry.
no.
I'll get too chatty. I just, that it really is about relationship, and it really is about remembering that there's no shame in not knowing, right? If you find a product that you have no idea, and I'll just be quick because when I moved here in 2015, I thought the ulu tree was the challah tree. And my neighbor said, "Look at my ulu." And I said, "Are you sure that's ulu?" Like I had no idea what I was talking about. So I had to learn all about it. And now it's my favorite solution for almost everything. So thank you to the Ulu Co-op, really. And so I think that when we teach our teams to embrace the idea that just because you don't know doesn't mean you can't use, you just have to learn and teach and share the knowledge that you have, right? Don't be shamed for not knowing, but ask. So there's so many outlets for you to learn beyond just talking to each other. I mean, any phone device will get you to 1,000 million recipes on just about anything. So have fun with food and let's get it local.
Yeah, awesome. Randy, so the Hawaii DOE has a goal of 30% local in our school food services by 2030. Can you tell us about some of that progress you have made and about some of your large food vendors, specifically local farmers? And can you highlight some specific challenges the DOE faces in sourcing local ag products and how you're working to overcome them?
A lot of questions there, Jason.
Yeah.
In terms of getting to 30%, 30 by 30 is the goal. We are now at 6. So there's a long way to go. Of the 6, 4 is local loose ground beef. 2 are produce, and 0.04 is poi, because we served it one day to kids on Oahu as a choice. The challenges have been supply and consistency. If we plan a menu and whatever it is that's locally sourced isn't there, we're kind of up the creek. Too big. There are several. One is milk. We have gotten now all of our 1%. We serve 1% milk and non-fat chocolate milk. Most of the students prefer the chocolate milk. But on the Big Island, we have now 100% of our 1% white milk is from local dairies. But it's not a huge number statewide. When I was a kid, we used to get the bottles of milk came from Hind Dairy. 100% of the milk sold in Hawaii, consumed in Hawaii, was milked in Hawaii. And little by little, 1960s, Safeway started bringing it in, and now hard to find. So milk, huge market potential for us. Other protein, we don't have any local chicken. We don't have any local pork. And the beef we have is only loose ground beef. We have opportunity for somebody to, we don't use any local eggs because we only use liquid eggs. So somebody's about to crank up a cracking plant, and that will give us local eggs, plenty of local eggs in Wailua. Local eggs, our beef, we only use loose. If somebody would form the patties for us so that we have something ready to pre-cooked, ready to heat. There's a big market. Longer term, the idea of breadfruit flour, we can use a lot of breadfruit flour. But somebody needs to make a scale flour factory that will produce flour that isn't 5 times what the imported wheat stuff costs. Bananas. I think people think produce and they think lettuce, but there's so much more milk, meat, and fruit that we can definitely use.
Thank you. So let's move on to Michael. Next question. Hawaii Pacific Health's mission is to create a healthier Hawaii. Can you tell us a little bit about what this means and how your institutional purchasing of local products can play a role in fulfilling this mission?
Sure. I was told that we serve about 2,200 meals a day, and that would be for either for our 7,000 of our employees or the 400 inpatients that we have on a daily basis across our system. I know this segment of the question is really about challenges and opportunities. I'd say in the space that we've worked in, that we've been focused on, I mentioned, right, affordable housing, economic empowerment, and local sourcing. This is the most challenging one that we've had to work on. And I honestly thought we stayed away actually from a lot of the state initiatives because we thought that the procurement issue would be just too much for us to get involved in. And we thought, okay, great. We're a private institution. We've got a great partnership with Kamehameha School. Maybe the two of us could hui. We can start to look at the products that we buy together. We don't have the procurement issue. We have got other issues. It's not just procurement, right? Even in a healthcare delivery system, we are so conscious and have been so encouraged to be efficient that we've actually had to unwind a lot of the inertia that is in the purchasing healthcare system that exists, right? It's got to be more than just the lowest cost because reimbursements are fixed as it is in most healthcare reimbursements. Right? Well, everything we get in healthcare, most of it is unilaterally determined, whether it's Medicare or Medicaid, right? They just basically tell you what you're going to get paid. And that's forced a lot of discipline on us. So I think for us, the learning has been, again, keeping intentionality in front of us all the time, right? It's not just about cost. It's about all the values that come with purchasing local. And I think for us, what's been most gratifying is when we see the small nonprofit organizations or even the small for-profit organizations that are mission aligned, and we see what they are doing with the monies that we give them, which a lot of it is to preserve Native Hawaiian culture and communities. It's to preserve a workforce. We like to see that type of money get recycled back into our economy and not sucked out here into the ether, right? But in order to do that, it takes, again, conscious deconstruction of what currently exists and thinking. And I think that we've been really blessed at HPH at all of our facilities. They're all aligned in this mission. But I gotta say, this has been the challenge. It's forced us to look at the mirror at ourselves and make sure that we get out of the way in our practices to achieve the kind of outcomes that we want to do. And those kinds of conversations are the hardest ones to make. And that's the journey that we're on. And I just wanted to get a little bit off script because I know this is about challenges and collaboration. And we could not do this without the partnerships that we've had. I don't know if Saleh's in the room, but he's been amazing with the Food Hub Alliance and Hawaii Food Hub, and Hawaii Good Food Alliance has been, an amazing resource for us, and Kamehameha Schools as well. And we've had the opportunity to learn from that. They've been amazing in terms of bringing our purchasers to, locally produced producers that we would have no access to, and it's been a wonderful journey that we've been on. I'm really happy to be a part of that.
Thanks, Michael. As we move to our final round of questions, Paula, if you want to join us on the stage. After this round, we'll move to a Q&A for the public to ask questions.
Couple questions about, is there any plan or a shared reporting template? And I understand for certain grants, the requirements, for example, JIA, granting aid, they actually require certain food banks, food pantries to distribute certain amount of weight, like certain pounds of food each month. For example, a small pantry in Kalihi, they take this grant and they have to distribute 150,000 pounds of food each month to get this grant, which is backward because that creates a lot of public health issues to meet this weight goal, because daikon is heavy, but it's lack nutrition. But daikon shows up in food banks a lot of times. And as well as for a lot of food banks and pantries, they actually don't have the industrial scale. So the weight is all estimated. It is not accurate. And I just want to see if there's a reporting template can be designed with, together with assessments and shared among institutions.
I'll share at Hawaii Pacific Health. Ours is based on dollars as well. It's the percent of our food spend in protein and ag, and what percentage of that per Department of Ag is 50%.
And I'll share that working with over 70 institutions across the country, there's no common reporting format. We do measure it in terms of dollars, but there's no common reporting format. So again, I would point you to, as a model, something that we could think about is France. The law, if you look up EGalim, EGalim is their law, and then Ma Canteen, M-A-C, I don't know. Talk to me later. Ma Canteen. But you will see, if you go through there, they have a website that shows the reports from all their institutions throughout the whole country, and they have a standardized format that they share, and then the institutions get to upload their information into it. I think it'd be great if we could do something like that. It's a huge undertaking, but it would really help us, measure that. So I'd love to get them to come out here. I think they'd be happy to come and tell us how they did it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
In France, it's digital. It's online. You can see it. Just look online.
Thanks. Anyone else here?
Hi, I'm Kevin Kelly from North Shore EVP. Thank the panel. Wonderful talks, great introductions. I want to do a little think provoking here. So we have education folks serving students, we have hospitals serving. And I want to go back to the slide from the initial discussion about 1,500 Korean kids getting sick and how they came up with their own criteria for food safety. What do you guys think about when you're preparing meals for your students or your sick or your elderly or immunocompromised people? Does food safety enter into that thinking parameter?
So food safety is as high priority as being able to actually procure the food. We know that we have a large base that could become sick quickly if we don't do our jobs to ensure delivery practices, cooling practices, heating practices, storage practices, temping throughout the day, multiple times during service. So we have a platform to ensure that we're tracking everything, and we have third-party auditors that come in to make sure that we're doing our jobs, as well as the Board of Health. So food safety is huge, and the farm hubs have helped us with that because they're able to source from the smaller farms, and then we can get to us, and then we can use our food safety practices once we get that food in our door. We have protocols in place to ensure safety.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as a healthcare delivery system, food safety, when we were first getting into this space, was the number one concern. And I think we've just taken calculated risks, right? I mean, there's probably more risk of food safety in other types of food, say, versus fruits. That's an example, right? And I think I give credit to a lot of the folks that are on our food purchasing side. They're pretty much putting their necks out, and cross our fingers we haven't had that issue. But that's also the reason why we want to invest in the food hub concept, because I think that's a really good proxy for quality that is not prohibitive in getting people to the marketplace. So definitely a concern.
Yeah, food safety is obviously critical, and Crystal, we have how safe is the food once it's entered your door, the practices in your kitchen, and also how safe is the food before it gets to your door. And both of those are critically important. We're about to publish some standards on the food that comes into the door. What does it need to be? What does it need to look like? And how does it need to be certified? More to follow.
Yeah, Kevin, I can also add, from a large farm like ours, who we're targeting institutionalized food service. We voluntarily go through, Primus audits constantly throughout the year, at the farm level, the harvest level, and at the processing level. And so you're paying a lot of money to bring auditors in, third-party auditors, to check your water systems, and they score you. And if you don't score at a certain number, right, you can't do business with the Costco's and the Foodlands, and et cetera. So, I think as the federal government moves into more of the FSMA compliance side, a lot of small farms are going to have to look at, these kind of third-party audits, which can be expensive, but are going to be critical to institutions, especially schools and hospitals where you have some of the most vulnerable people. So, sorry.
Less than 10% of the farms in Hawaii. Kevin, 10% even? Huh? Well, less are food safety certified. So when are we going to understand that to get the supply into the school systems and institutions, that we need to invest in food safety, and the state has to get involved in this. And they have to allocate money so that these small farmers can get food safety certified, because otherwise we are not going to have farmers.
To food. And I'm just curious and want to bring to this conversation the food education that we do in schools through the work of the Hawaii Farm to School Hui and many others, and to remind us and also to ask of you, how will you partner in those relationships and encouraging our students to try new foods that they may not have tasted before, so that we don't end up in the situation of 3/4 of our plates that are being served to students are being thrown away. So thank you for the conversation tonight. Would love to hear your ideas.
Debbie, that's such a good point. And I will say that I mentioned briefly that about incentives for school food to buy local, environmental, sustainable food, et cetera. We did pass a $100 million fund in California to provide incentives to our schools. There's 1,000 school districts in California. But with and not having them be dependent on reimbursements, they've been able to buy, for example, bulk milk instead of milk by cartons. They've been able to buy organic milk and so forth, but that reduces waste. So when they've all been saying that the school districts we talked to that got the incentive funds, that they're able to reduce food waste because with the extra funds, they're able to invest in higher quality food that's more appealing to students, and then also make those other kind of practice shifts that would reduce food waste. So I'm a fan of incentive fund. Because school districts are really hampered by the amounts that they get in reimbursement to be able to make a lot of those changes. If we give them extra funds, I think that can help. That's one way to look at it.
One charter school concluded that if you start to give the kids in kindergarten and first grade these strange foods that they've never had before, by the time they get to 4th and 5th grade, not so bad. So it's an education issue, as you point out. It's a palatability as well. You need to serve what kids want to eat at the same time as it meets nutrition guidelines.
And I also want to echo what Randy said. I mean, at HPH, we had a very successful pilot program on the island of Kauai, Farm to Keiki, that did just that. We brought in, basically at a very young age, kids and exposed them to food that they were growing. They got a lot more engaged. It had network impacts on their siblings. It had network impacts on their family. They consumed the food, less waste, all of that. But I think on the slide you had shown too is the demand piece. I see variation in our own hospitals, right? If they're located on Kauai versus located in the urban areas, the taste for kalo is there's a lot of variation in that. And I think until we get to experimentation and familiarity, I think you nailed it. I think all that food waste. So the food waste is why when they come back to us and say, "Oh, this isn't working. We had too much waste at this event," and we have to get back at changing tastes and introducing it. Start with the kids and get more creative in our dietary side.
Thank you. And I would just say, please see the teachers in the classrooms as your allies in that.
I'd like to agree with you on that as well. We have a unique opportunity in our 4 campuses where we really partner and build relationships with our students and our faculty and teachers. And we start with tasting, and we've seen huge growth in the ono really for fruit and poi and yogurt in the morning. These are things that we didn't see 10 years ago. So when we first took over the contract for food service at Kamehameha schools, just at high school, this is my favorite example, we had lines wrapped around the dining room for saimin, right? And saimin's delicious. And but it's maybe not so nutritious. And so we noticed, though, about 2 or 3 years ago that our second graders who are now seniors, our lines for saimin were equal to our lines for fresh fruit. And so these 12th graders who were second graders when we started always had like stealth wellness in front of them. We didn't say, this is good for you, please eat it. We just afforded it to be there for them. And as they grew, they learned that within their body, they would function better. And so we were able to shift what they wanted, and now they demand it. Now our local papaya way outsells our cantaloupe from the mainland. You know, I mean, this is something that we were astonished by when we started looking at the metrics. I'm sorry I don't have them to share with you, but we also have full waste tracking on the other end of that as well. We track all of our waste from prep kitchen, scratch kitchens, always going to have waste, always. But what can we do to reduce it? And we look at that monthly, weekly at every single station throughout the kitchens. You know, we also look at it at post-consumption, which is huge, right? Because that's where we see where are the students eating, what are they eating, and what are they hungry for? Is that post-consumption or the scrape line when they come back? And we've seen a huge reduction in scrape line waste by involving our students in doing metrics. So it's been really awesome to see the kids then driving the influence with their fellow students on, hey, don't take so much. You know you can't eat this giant plate of food. So, and then their students feel a little peer pressure, you know, a little competition between classes, making food fun, right, from beginning to end. When food is fun and nutritious, it changes the entire palate. And we're feeding kids. What better job is that? What more important? Where is that more important than feeding the next generation? Thank you for that question.
Thank you. So
One more.
So we're gonna stop there. Looks like our time's up, and just want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of our esteemed panelists, Paula Daniels for joining us, sharing your generous insights. We'll all be around throughout the evening, so feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. Everyone will be mingling. I would look forward to continuing this engaging conversation. So, Nate.
You know, I couldn't agree more. Really have to figure out what kids want to eat. I think that's really important. I remember, I'm married to a chef, Roy Yamaguchi, and people used to ask me all the time, "What do you guys feed your kids?" And I'm not kidding you, but we spent so much time at the Chinese restaurant because our kids used to love Chinese food. But anyway, I know how hard it is for all of you who are in this food service business. I want to thank Jason, and I also want to thank our panelists and Paula Daniels for being here and joining us tonight. Before we close, I would like to follow up on the importance of culinary training. I think Krista had mentioned it, so we can have all the food safety is important too, Dean, because I know Dean has been harping on that. But we can have all the great product, but unless we have those in the kitchen that are culinary trained, it's gonna be an uphill battle. And I wanted to quickly recognize my husband, Roy Yamaguchi, and there's Grant Itomitsu and Jennifer Medeiros from the Kapiolani Community College Culinary Institute of the Pacific, who are here tonight because they recently launched a partnership with the Culinary Institute of America, which is the premier culinary college that can make a difference in our farm-to-school institutions. Through the partnership, KCC will be offering 5-week workforce development trainings for 24 cohorts of 16 cooks or chefs with at least 3 years of kitchen experience. They will also be able to coordinate curated trainings for large institutions like hospitals, the DOE, state, and others that may want to elevate the cooking skills of their employees and support their workforce. I think this is really, really important. So if there is interest in this program, the first 2 cohorts have been filled. There's a third and fourth cohort, and the Hawaii Ag and Culinary Alliance will be supporting the tuition for that 100%. So if you know people that are interested, please go to that website and ask them to apply because it'll be free for the next 2 cohorts. I want to thank everybody for being part of tonight's gathering. I know we're all looking forward to the eating and drinking, and I would like to introduce the chefs who will feature dishes inspired by them. Okay, I'm going to start. The chefs are inspired by the theme, School Lunch Reimagined. Our guest chefs are Hyun Kim of O'Kim's Korean Kitchen, Angu Herama and Nili Yildirim of Istanbul, Jeremy Shigekane of the Waikiki Prince, and Mark Noguchi of the Pili Group. Our chefs have crafted a variety of dishes inspired by their own ethnicities, presenting what they have loved to eat as a student in their cafeterias. These meals feature local agricultural products. Additionally, I want to thank Calais Eggs, who will be providing all of you a dozen eggs. You need to pick them up using the card you received at check-in at their Waimanalo location between August 17 and the 31st. Please exit to the right of the door. Actually, you don't have to exit. We were having a panel back there, but you can just move to the back. And on behalf of the Hawaii Agricultural Foundation, please enjoy and drive home safely.